Hello and welcome back to my second narrated speed paint. I didn't spontaneously combust when I posted the last one, so we are a go for round 2. And I'm just gonna kind of explain what I did, why I did it, everything that led me to this point. And I'm gonna start by talking about kind of what got me back into Sailor Moon, because I was really into her when I was a little kid, and then I got distracted for a few decades. Not quite a few decades, I'm not that old, like a decade and a half. And really what got me into her is I started looking at a lot of fan art, and you know how algorithms work. So once you look at beautiful art, it just kind of shows more to you. So I just started looking into a lot of Sailor Moon fan art, and then I got into a lot of Sailor Moon merch, and then I spent the better part of a week looking up at everything related to Sailor Moon and not actually watching the show again. So I decided I needed to change that, and then I realized that the original show is on Hulu, and I don't have Hulu, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna pay for Hulu for this. So I started watching Sailor Moon Crystal, and we'll see if I have the urge to watch the original series at the end of this, or if I will be satiated. So I'm not very far into Crystal, but I am enjoying it. And that's kind of what led me to wanting to draw her, but it's also kind of affected me in like how I approach this, because I don't feel like I'm super in tune with the character anymore, because I saw her when I was a little girl and I didn't check in for years. So I was really, really nervous that it wouldn't look like her. So I looked at a screenshot and basically did everything as a redraw of a screenshot, because I was so scared that it wouldn't look like her. It would just be a disaster. So I did that, especially since a few weeks ago I drew a girl with pigtails and blonde hair because I thought it would be cute, and it was, but then I was just like so scared that she would look like this generic girl. And I don't know why I had that fear, but I really paid a lot of attention to likeness. So I used a reference. I was very religious in following it. I was very good about it. And then I wanted to draw her doing her like most famous pose, her little "in the name of the moon" thing. No mistaking that. And I actually drew her eyes larger than I have been drawing eyes, because I felt like the big, shiny, sparkly shoujo eyes are a part of her features, and I couldn't, in good conscience, take that away from her. Or rather, I was so scared. I was nervous it wouldn't look like her if I got rid of her giant, sparkly eyes. So you'll see them later, and good God, they're shiny. So I'm kind of doing the arms. There's so much arm action in this pose. They're coming towards you, they're going far away from you. But I've mostly figured it out by this point. That you probably saw me futz with the arm placement in the sketch. But I still wasn't quite happy with that hand. I felt weirdly thin. This is an awful point in the video for me to run out of things to say, because there's nothing much happening. I'm just inking. And I kind of wanted to incorporate hatching, but not cross-hatching. That seemed like too much. Because I do like that look in line art, when it's not just a thin line. That's kind of where I was differentiating myself from the reference in the line quality and things like that. And also the fact that it's not a still from a show, and so I can spend time on it. You know, a lot of struggle with kind of her head in general, because it's slightly tilted to the side, so you see more of one ear than the other, and you see an angle on her tiara. And also, I don't draw mouths open a lot, because I don't have to, draw them talking, because I don't animate. I do illustrations, so I'm not as versed in getting the mouth open, but obviously she's saying that she'll punish you at this point. So her mouth had to be open. Only felt right. I struggled a lot with the mouth. Not super happy with it, but it turned out, I guess. So one of my main concerns, besides you know, it being a stranger and not looking like her at all, was that it wouldn't look like something I drew at all. Because that's something I struggle with when I look at reference and like really follow it, that sometimes I follow it too much, and then it's like, who drew this? I don't know them. They're a stranger. And it was me. But it's something I worry about because I just try a lot of different styles and I don't tend to stick to one for too long. So I'm very porous and I absorb reference images, and I have to consciously make sure I'm differentiating myself. And I'm also differentiating myself from the past girl with pigtails I drew because she had much wavier hair. And I was really, really scared. But also I had to add some curl because at the end of her hair, way down there where you can't see, it does have, like, it ends in a curl, but they're all one big curl. So I was really trying to figure out how much curl is in her hair and how can I show that without her looking like this person I've already drawn, because that would be disastrous. You know? So I'm trying. I finally decided to go for the whole, you know, just outline the edges and then fill bucket the inside. And I feel like I've entered a new age. It's called the 21st century. But I kind of go in later and I slightly feather things so that it kind of covers because in Procreate there's like often a little line where the fill bucket meets where you drew the edges in. And then I have to clean that up later. So I feel like I saved time because this took 6 hours and last week took 7 hours. And this was a more involved drawing than last week. So I do feel like I saved time on it. But also, I wasted time and I didn't need to. So I need to get better about that. So the eyes are interesting because with how I did the eyelashes, a lot of it is how I've been doing eyes. But then I also didn't connect the bottom lashes to the top lashes, which I usually do. But I just felt like that wouldn't work with kind of how I envisioned her and how I saw her, you know. That she had to have these really huge eyes with a lot of vertical room, and that does not go with connecting the top and bottom lashes. It just does not work that way. So I kind of tried to compromise on how I draw eyes and how Sailor Moon's eyes look. And I'm happy with them. But yeah, finishing flooding the colors. This is where I futz around with blurring things a little bit. Shortly after this, I'll realize I maybe made a mistake. I definitely made a mistake there. I had to remember late that I missed her arm. I completely forgot that she had one, I guess. But yeah, I'm adding blushing because I feel like without it, it just doesn't look like skin. It's a very important step that before you shade, at least with how I draw, that you have to add at least some redness. Here I am cleaning up the lines and where they blurred over lines and stuff like that because it bothered me. And so basically what I'm doing here and what I did with the blushing is I believe the blushing I did on a separate layer and then merged it down, but I'm doing some preliminary shading on the actual layers, or I was. Now I'm going over everything with a multiply layer. I'm selecting various parts of I think I'm selecting the skin here, and I'll probably select something else to do a multiply layer over everything. I find that with the multiply layer, you can really merge everything together, but if you don't do at least some under shading or like under variation in color, because I added some pink to the white areas. So I started off with a more blue kind of very light gray, and then I went for a more pink very light gray and stuff like that. And I feel like that's very important to add some variation in color before doing a more simple shading, because otherwise it looks flat to me, I guess. Not really flat in the spatial sense, but flat in the visually uninteresting sense, where everything just kind of stays the same color throughout every part of it with just one shading color. I feel like that can look really bland. So I find that, going over it beforehand, or at least going over a lot of areas beforehand and adding some really slight color variance is really useful with that. So here I'm doing a multiply over the hair and then just kind of erasing hair strokes out, which I feel is really necessary for kind of the hair texture to function as hair texture. I'm going over a second multiply layer here. Also, it's not the same layer. I'm just adding some kind of definition into like the hair strands and how they overlap and things like that. And then I did like a large brush and just a very subtle gradient. And then I erased a little tiny bit on her bangs. Just again, worried about things looking flat. Here I'm at light and I'm using the lasso to select, and then I'm using a soft brush to add highlights, and then erasing some of them away if I feel like I go too far. I like this because it helps the highlights, have sharper edges and not just highlight everything, but also they blend in together because with a soft brush you can really control the opacity and have it look smooth if you wanted to. Here I'm doing kind of similar things, but I'm erasing it out into with I think the round brush, and I feel like that really helps things look really, really shiny, but you don't have as much of the kind of softness on one edge of the highlights. You really get it all very shiny. And I'm coloring the lines to match it now because, it doesn't, sometimes it feels like it doesn't matter how shiny it is. If the lines are black, it doesn't look like glistening, it doesn't look bright. So I wanted a softer look, so I'm having to change all the line colors. I'm just going over and painting things based on whatever order I felt was easiest. With the white and the skin tone, I actually used 2 different colors to color the line art, depending on the shading and like how dark it was and how light it was, because there were just times where I felt it was still too dark. And here I finished with some hair detailing and we're done.